Grant Napier and Sean Salisbury. Oh man, it is almost Labor Day weekend. Sean, I fucking love it. How are you, buddy?
Dude, are you kidding me? I am so pumped up. And fuck that 0 week shit. Did you use
I
that
know.
term? No.
No.
Right now, you think Scott Frost thinks it's 0 week? You handed another game away, an onside kicking with 11-point lead. Screw that. They're not. That ain't no 0 week. I'm pumped, man. Labor Day,
Yeah.
all these good shows, NFL, baseball at times. Come on, man. Yeah, I
Hey,
friggin'
it's
love this
awesome.
shit. And you know
All
who
right.
I'm on the show with?
Yeah.
It's really simple. Motherfucking Grant Napier. That's how
Aren't
I
you a
love it.
lucky man?
Yeah, dude. Hey, not everybody gets to say they get to do this a couple times a week. I'm with you,
That's right.
brother.
I love it. All right. I love what San Francisco did this week. I think having Jimmy Garoppolo as a backup to Lance is a great situation. Listen, you can say whatever you want. No one knows how Lance is going to be as a quarterback. All right. Nobody knows. Having Garoppolo 35-16 as a starter when Shanahan's been the coach. Listen, I love this, Sean. I don't see any negatives at all.
Not one. And if there was a negative, if you're worried about the fragility of your young quarterback, well, then that's on you for drafting a guy that's fragile. I'm not saying he is, but if that's the case, I am with you, Grant. I think that there's a chance. Now, I hope that Trey Lance plays out of his mind and Jimmy gets another starting job somewhere. It's the best insurance policy the entire summer camp. And Grant, I'm not sure. I know guys like win jobs, like a receiver will beat somebody else out, or a rookie plays. We got a Damian Pierce here, the kid from Florida, who's a really good player with the Texans. But I'm going to say this is the very best decision by a football team of the 32 teams this preseason. You secure yourself with a guy who's got playoff and Super Bowl chops,
Yep.
who you got for a third of the money he was making. You got an insurance policy that if he doesn't get a snap, he can play. And if it doesn't work for 10 weeks, you're on a Super Bowl roster and you've got a cushion and you've got a blessing. What a blessing. To me, if you're Kyle Shanahan, you think, damn, that's one of those. I thought we were going to get divorced and we didn't get divorced and I kept, and it's the best thing I ever did, right? When you finally shift your paradigms, I'm with you. I think it's the best damn decision any NFL team made right now to secure the best backup quarterback in the NFL.
See, here's the deal. I look at San Francisco. To me, they're Super Bowl ready. When I look at that defense, I look at their skill positions with Samuel, with Ayuk. They have a tremendous tight end in Kittle. They can run the football. I'm a little concerned about their offensive line. I thought they lost some key guys in the offseason. But if Lance gets hurt, or let's face it, we don't know how Trey Lance is going to be. If he shits the bed in a couple of weeks, you've got a guy that you know has done it before. And I love that.
Yeah, what a luxury for Kyle because pressure's off now. No disrespect to Nate Sudfeld or something like that. We're talking this is a different world now we're living in, and they do have a Super Bowl roster. Grant, they're front seven and they're back. They are friggin' filthy.
Yeah.
I mean, the depth of their front seven and what they can do with it. Hell, and if Kinlaw, and I was talking to Brian Baldinger the other day, if Kinlaw has a career year with Bosa on the outside, who keeps getting better. I mean, the Bosa brothers were just born to rush the passer, right, and knock the shit out of you. And they got the best middle linebacker in the league. I love this team. I'm with you. And so to me, there's only one weakness that's overly concerning. The other one, who will Trey Lance be? And we don't know. And I hope it's for them. They're hoping he's lights out, and he very well could be. But you got that insurance policy. You're exactly right. Matter of fact, in my mind, two of the 3 or 4 Super Bowl favorites in the NFC have the same problem. Tampa with their interior offensive line and what's going to do with different bodies. Now, the difference is, in San Francisco, they got the best offensive linemen in Trent Williams, but that continuity for both matters. But San Francisco, if they can, defense will get stops, short fields. If Trey Lance does not try to be a hero, we may be on to something here in San Francisco. The Rams better be careful because this is not a locked division.
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. You mentioned Tampa for a moment. There's always a team that we don't ever talk about around this time of the year that ends up being pretty good. And I can't hitch my wagon behind Jameis Winston. I just can't because of his inconsistency. But I look at that defense for the Saints. The unknown about that's right. And they own Tampa. They have done a great job against Tampa when Brady's been the quarterback. I don't know about Alvin Kamara. Is he going to be able to play the whole year? Is he going to be taken off because of what happened the morning of the Pro Bowl? So that's a little bit of a question mark. If I had more confidence in Winston as quarterback, I could see them winning the division. I really could. Am I crazy?
No, what if Brady was the quarterback in New Orleans? Would you pick them as a Super Bowl favorite in the NFC?
Yes.
Agreed. Agreed. Now, you're not at all, Grant, and I'm going to get to Tampa real quick in a second. But with New Orleans, Super Bowl defense, great young depth in the secondary.
Yep.
Dennis Allen knows how to coach it. Now, he's got to learn to balance coaching and calling defenses. We know how that dynamic can and sometimes can't work. You get so caught up in every single snap that goes on. You got to realize there's 2/3 of the other team that you got to, special teams and offense, you got to keep track of. Pete Carmichael's been there a while. I'm curious to see which Jameis shows up. And here's what I want, Grant. I don't want either of them. I want a guy that we haven't seen fully yet. Here's why. In Tampa, explosive arm. We know he's got the down vertical ability. Throw you 30 touchdowns and throw you 30 picks.
Yep.
So he throw it to the other team. Careless with the football, yet can throw 3 picks in the first half and 4 touchdowns in the second. Dynamic ability with his skill set. He just does.
Yep.
And then he's got a high football IQ. The guy knows that he gets it, but he's careless. Then there's the New Orleans Saints, Jameis Winston, taking over for Drew Brees before he got hurt. Sean Payton and him, it was almost as if they went 180 degrees, said, dude, you're not throwing 35 times a game here. You're going to throw it 20. We're going to hand it off. We're going to play defense, and we're going to mix in our Swiss Army knife, and you're going to go 16 out of 23 with no picks for 148 yards, and we're going to win. That and 2 touchdowns or a touchdown. But what they lost was with that guts that he has, the vertical that Brees could not give them the last 2 years. So what I need to find for them is that happy medium, Grant, where you don't coach yourself out of having balls, right?
Right.
But you also don't play stupid enough to say, okay, I got a big arm. It's okay to hit a single, right? I got great weapons. Get him the ball, let him do some shit. And adding Jarvis Landry, I mean, you don't have – and with a defense like that, the biggest mistake you can make is taking too many chances and giving the other team the short field like Carolina and get upset by them. It costs you a playoff spot. Can't do it. So if Jameis can find that let's go for it, but be smart with the ball, they got the vertical passing game. And you mentioned they play such great defense against Brady. Grant, let me caution people one little bit. I know the offensive line's not very good. I mean, let me put it this way. I know they've banged up in Tampa.
Right.
I'm going to caution every fucking time people do this. Brady's looking. It seems like somebody says something like makes fun of why he was out of camp or, all the these fuckers don't get it. He files it away. He just does. 23 years of filing, and he always makes you pay. And so there's this. He misses camp. What's going on? The offensive line's not as good. Here's 3 things I know. Bruce Arians said it's the best roster he's ever seen there. Secondly, he said Brady's throwing it better than he has the last 10 years, which to me, shit, I don't know how I could throw it much better than he did last year. And with their roster being that good, and one thing, he does not hold on to the ball, Grant. That's the advantage of him because he knows where to throw it. So while it is a detriment and there's a little bit of liability inside there, if their receivers separate, which they can, look out. They can still be the top favorite in the NFC. They're that good.
All right. I'm going to give you 4 weeks of football. At Dallas, all right, on Sunday Night Football. I don't think the Cowboys are that good this year. I think they have some holes. But again, that's a tough game.
You better block Micah Parsons because right now they need 8 guys to block him.
All right. Then listen to this, Sean. At New Orleans, I'm talking about the Bucks. Then home for Green Bay and Kansas City the following week. Think about those 4 games, Sean. At Dallas, at New Orleans, home Green Bay, home Kansas City. That is a fucking brutal start to the season. And if that offensive line is still banged up and it's not that consistent or not that cohesive, not consistent, I could see this Bucks team getting off to a slow start. I just heard what you said about Brady, but we're going to know a lot about this Bucks team before we get to October.
I mean, it is a ball-busting schedule the first month. What if I told you I'm willing to bet you that they're 3-1 minimum coming out of that?
Minimum?
3-1 coming out of it. They'll lose somewhere. They'll lose. They're going to beat Green Bay at home in their building. They're going to beat Dallas on the road in the opener. And then they got who? They got Kansas City, and who's the other one?
New Orleans, week 2 on the road in New Orleans.
Week 2 is a concern for me.
Uh-huh.
Because they're going to beat Dallas. They'll get a long time, and then they're going to come, and they're going to beat Kansas City too. because Kansas City's taking a step back this year too. 3-1 coming out of the first month, and watch everybody start thumbing their nuts like, ooh, we screwed up on the Brady thing. Now they may be 1-3 too, Grant, because that teams are good. I just guess, Grant, for me, and maybe I'm swinging off his nizuts too much, but I've seen the movie too many times, right? I know how Fast and the Furious 9 ends, dude, and I've seen it, but dick around for a month and you'll start off 1-3, and then you'll be in a chase mode the whole season. You are exactly right. I'm going 3-1 after the first month.
Why were you so quick to go, oh, they'll beat Green Bay? Are you down on Green Bay this year?
I think Green Bay is good. I just think that Tampa's defense is going to make it miserable. Tampa Bay's defense, for all the stuff we're saying about Tampa Bay's offense, I mean, their offensive line, we are not saying enough about the dudes on D. They can run.
Yep.
Okay, if you're Todd Bowles, you know what you're going to do? You're going to maul the offensive, the pass rush, the pass catchers, and no Devontae Adams. You're going to say, I dare you. And they're going to try to make Rodgers have to take that one little extra hitch, Grant. Now, he's good enough to do it, but he's such a rhythm guy, right? 1, 2, 3, boom, ball's out. And they're going to try to take him off their mark, and they're capable of doing it. So I'm not down on Green Bay. Last time I saw that movie, I watched Tampa waltz into Green Bay in an NFC championship game and take care of their business. Now, listen, you get a fake-faced Prescott who's capable of throwing for 400. We know New Orleans can score. They're capable of keeping you under 10 or around 13, 16, 17 points. And we know Mahomes can go haywire too. I'll tell you what, it's one of the great first month watches on the planet. But I don't know if I'm going hot take-ish, but for me, I can't sell it if I don't believe it. I do believe they're winning 3 of those first 4 games.
Okay.
That's how strongly I feel about that roster.
All right, we got a question on the chat line from Ryan. Is Jimmy G going to be a Niner if another team's quarterback goes down early? He now has trade value at $6.5 million with an expiring contract.
A contending team, maybe trade for him. If you are, or a team that still thinks he's got 5, 6, 7 years, like for instance, let's say the New York Giants, Grant, a team you're familiar with. And listen, no disrespect to Joe Flacco with the Jets. But who's a better player right now, Flacco or Garoppolo?
Come on,
right? If you didn't do Zach Wilson, so maybe one of those you're saying I still got him for a long-term guy that he's a guy that I wanted, but whatever it is. But let's say you're Minnesota and Cousins goes down. I understand you got Mullins, but remember Mullins was carrying the clipboard for a couple of years ago for Jimmy. Yep. And you're Kevin O'Connell, who knows Shanahan, who understands McVay, that whole feeder, and says, dude, I know you need that security blanket, but damn, we'll give you a second-round pick for him. That's how desperate we are. After he already cut 2 quarterbacks, got rid of Mannion, so a team like that, I could see it happening. But if I'm Kyle Shanahan, you know what I say is, I am going to, you get no hometown discount. I'm going to milk you now that you're desperate, which is what they're planning on. Either desperate or I'll see you next year. So, if you get to continue, but if you're all of a sudden, hell, the Detroit Lions, and you're going to draft a quarterback in the first 4 picks next year.
Make sense.
At all. Sense. That's exactly right.
I'm looking at a team like Tennessee if Tannehill gets hurt because they're still really good. We saw what they did last year, and Tannehill had that horrible.
And they got a future. A future.
That's right. So I could see that being a fit. You agree?
And yes, I do. And don't count out, Grant, a team that thinks they have what would happen if Joe Burrow tore? I mean, what happens if a Super Bowl team, they've upgraded their offensive line? What happens if Burrow were to go down? Do you trust their backup to carry it, or do you say, you know what? I'm going to make this change. Or the other team in Ohio, Cleveland, that's been talked about ad nauseum. If their roster says, and their first month is pretty easy for them. I mean, they got a pretty good go. So because that's why they're hoping the 6 games for Watson. And let's say at the midway point or close to it, you're 2 games above 500. And you think we're pretty good. Yep. Pittsburgh and they beat up on themselves, and Baltimore with Lamar, the whole thing. And you're one of those 2 teams. Well, what if Lamar? I mean, I know they got a backup in Baltimore. That division almost feels like a division that could use Jimmy, right? I don't know why, Grant, but if I'm in contending mode, it's a 1 year for $6 million, $6.5 million bucks.
Yeah.
And even Jimmy, if he knows it's a rental, he's auditioning for his next job. If it's a team that says we're kind of a tweener, but we'd like him longer distance like a Giants if something were to happen, hell, why not? But I'm holding you hostage if I'm San Francisco now. Now you had your chance. Now you know you're desperate, so screw you. So you hope nothing happens to Burrow, but damn, Jimmy's been there before. I mean, teams like that, hell yes, I would.
All right, you're a Raiders guy. I want to talk to you about their offensive line. Do you think that's an issue? Are you okay with that? Now, game one at the Chargers, who have revamped their defense. Their defense was their Achilles heel last year, particularly against the run. They go out and get Khalil Mack. They get a couple of other guys that I think are good role defensive players. Which of those two teams, and I know you're a Raiders fan, but take that and put it on the back burner for right now. Which of those two rosters do you like the best?
I think the Chargers are winning the division this year. I do. Didn't I see where one of their defensive backs is out? Isn't Jackson somebody out for a month? Grant, did I see that in
with the Raiders?
The Chargers. Chargers.
Didn't I see it up?
Maybe I dreamt it. Honestly, honest to God, I dream a lot. Last night I'm dreaming about CEOs. Swear to God, I'm thinking about. I had a dream about the American Express. The name, the CEO. I'm going through my mind like I'm dreaming of CEOs. Like, Sean, you plan on being one? What the fuck is wrong with you? I didn't know, so I very well could have dreamt it. But I thought there was an injury, and I know Derwin James in the past, but just check it out. But I like the. I think both rosters are good, and I think both are improved, Grant, no question, from the Chandler Jones and the Devontae Adams. And the question is, if you're light in the secondary in that game against the Chargers, I mean, if the Chargers game against the Raiders, think about what you got to go through with Waller and Devontae and Hunter Renfrow. Mismatch problems could be abound. So I think overall, I like the Chargers roster better. Am I right?
You're right. He's Jackson's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks with an ankle.
Okay, you're going to miss that game.
Right. Yeah.
So now, so a little bit of game plan adjustment that Staley's going to have to make. So I still think the Chargers are going to be right there in the end to win the division. But do I think that the Raiders can beat them in the opener with that and catch them and Carr can have it? Oh, absolutely. Matter of fact, it's in SoFi, right? Yes. In Los Angeles.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a hell of a football game.
Me too.
Maybe early Raiders. Maybe they get, and McDaniels, he's going to have a lot of stuff for him. Grant, you and I both know that. Yep. A lot of different formations and all that. So I could see that. But in the long run, I think when all is said and done, 3 teams are going to be battling for the winning division in December. I don't think this is settled anytime till middle to late December.
All right, I want to talk college football. We'll get to the Ohio State Notre Dame game. But I want to ask you, do you see any other team other than Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State winning the national championship this year?
Winning it? No. Winning it? No. Every other team that what I would consider that has a close shot. I mean, Alabama's obviously the most complete. It's a no-brainer.
And they got the best quarterback.
They do, and it was a rebuilding year last year, and they were in the final, which is absolutely. It's almost like when Tiger wins by 12 strokes and says he didn't have his A game, right? It's like, fuck you, right? While you're dominating everybody else, but that's them. Georgia, I'm not worried about the quarterback anymore. He proved me he's got big balls, Stetson Bennett. And that defense, when you lose 5 defensive first-round starters, and also Nakobe Dean, who's a third-rounder who played his ass off, you can't help but say, how are we going to be? They'll be good.
Right.
But there's another everybody now, let's go, man. And that's the SEC. Ohio State, they're going to score points galore. New defensive coordinators. Knowles has got a lot of pressure on him. If their defense is 80% of their offense, they can win the national title because they can score. They got great running game. They can move the line of scrimmage. Their wide receiving core is stupid, and Stroud's a good player. I mean, he's beyond good. There's no doubt. So they can. So all of them, Alabama doesn't have any glaring weakness to me, even with losing, and they got the best defensive player in America, period. So now you look around and say, okay, who's the others? SC, who's in the middle. I say them because you got a great quarterback, a great play caller, great perimeter people on the edge, great receiving core. Are they physical enough? Utah. Utah's got a quarterback that Kyle Whittingham says is the best leader he's ever had.
That's saying something.
And yeah, damn right it is. And they're going to be physical as hell. They're inside the top 10. Baylor, to me, the safest bet in the country is Baylor at 7.5 fucking wins. They got them at 7.5. That team could be playing. If they roll through the Big 12 and win the thing, they could be playing in the Final Four.
Yep.
So I'm a little shocked at that, but Vegas builds hotels and casinos for a reason and air conditions them, but I'm taking that bet. So Baylor, but all these teams we're talking about, Grant, everywhere else, Utah and Baylor, Michigan, 2-quarterback system, but they're good in, they proved that they can physically play with you last year. So everybody has something in that top 10, but most of them, but Alabama, have something that if they don't fix it, trouble. Maybe not Georgia, but that's a lot of replacements.
Yep.
It really is. And they restock. But Alabama's, I don't think anybody's winning the national title. Those three. And then there's Clemson. Phenomenal front seven. There's a bunch of NFL dudes playing in there. The question is, who's DJ Uiagalelei? Is he freshman against Notre Dame, or is he last year's? If he's last year's, he will not keep the job. He will lose it to somebody else. So we're about to find out. It's going to be one of those three. If you're going to beat one of those three, you better you're going to have a good supply of body bags on the way to do it.
I look at Ohio State, though. The Big Ten is down this year. There's nobody else in that conference that I could see winning that.
Other than Michigan, because they're physical.
Yeah, but even with Michigan, I don't think they're as good as last year. To you? I mean, I'm looking at the players they lost, and I also wanted to ask you about Michigan. Are you okay with Jim Harbaugh right now saying, "Hey, you're starting this game, you're starting that game," to see who his number one guy is?
Yeah, it's weird, Grant. I don't usually. I hate 2-quarterback systems. I can't stand it. This is one of the unique ones because J.J. McCarthy, the 5-star kid who's got great feet, he's a better 2-dimensional player than McNamara is. Yet McNamara is your certified thrower. I don't put it this way: all year long, both of them are going to play. One reason why is name, image, and likeness, and transport. You don't want either one of those suckers to leave on you. You got to recruit your own players, so you're going to appease them and keep them happy for a second.
Great point.
I think we'll see it. They're going to win both their first 2 games, and because they're not teams like Colorado State and somebody, it's not going to beat them. Right. So Jim has to make the decision over who's going to give you the best chance not to beat Colorado State, who's going to give you the best chance to beat Ohio State. And he's going to have to figure that out if he hasn't already figured out. He's quirky. He's different. He'll use both. Jim will do something all year long crazy, but the physicality got me last year. I just need to know how explosive they're going to be offensively, and you lose a lot of energy on defense with Hutchinson. I mean, they got something to replace because the best team in that conference can score from the damn parking lot, so be careful.
All right, so I think you answered the question, but if we take those 3 teams I mentioned, Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State out of the mix, just to have some fun as we're here on Labor Day weekend, who's the 4th team? Are you going with Clemson?
No, I'm not. Now, their path, they'll run into Pitt's pretty good. North Carolina always but their defense is so good. If their quarterback doesn't screw it up, I don't know how Miami's going to be better. They should. Yep. They got a quarterback who, Van Dyke's a pretty good player. And I can tell you, Mario Cristobal will have them. It's going to look different. I assure you of that physicality.
I live in Miami, and it already feels different. Nobody's been talking about Miami football since I got here. Everyone's talking about the Hurricanes.
Yeah, it's going to look a little more old school Coral Gables that you're used to, I assure you.
Yep.
So that's dangerous games if you come in there and you decide to turn it over 2 or 3 times, right? But for me, I can see Clemson dominant and losing a game they're not supposed to lose. So, no, I don't think they're going to be. Grant, I look at we talked about Michigan. I'm telling you, somebody like a Baylor and or a Oklahoma State. Now, I say because Gundy doesn't get any. Gundy just keeps winning 9 and 10 games, right?
Yep.
I think Baylor's a dangerous team. I do, and I'm shocked at that. I know their schedule's a little tough. Out west, SC could shock. They got to travel a bit of ways. I'm telling you, I'm intrigued with Utah because a quarterback can play and they're physical. And when you do that, they got an easier path than anybody in the SEC, right? Mm. And then so somewhere along the line, does an Ole Miss play out of their mind, which I doubt. They'll score a lot, and they'll play a lot. So I'm probably leaning towards Baylor, Utah as my somewhat. And long shot's not right because they're in the top 10. But those 2 type of teams that I say, you know what? Go ahead and mess around, and those 2 teams will be staring at a chance to get to the Final Four. And if they're in it, then good quarterback play and some defense, you can win it. So I'm going to say of the 4, Clemson doesn't make it. I don't trust the quarterback right now. I don't trust the quarterback right now. I trust the other guys and the other teams more. Dave Aranda can coach. And who knows, the 4th one may be somebody that catches us way off guard. But put it this way: if it's Utah, Michigan, Baylor, and Clemson, of those four, I got to believe one of those teams is going to be the fourth team.
Sean, as you evaluate Bryce Young, what type of quarterback do you see him at the next level?
Get rid of the measurables. He's already proven he can play. I could care less that he's a little shorter, right?
Right.
When are we going to stop with that nonsense?
Right.
So throw that. I was asked, Grant, it's weird that you asked me that. I was asked yesterday, what's his weakness? And I can tell you what his weakness is. Do you realize this dude's played one season? One. He played backed up a little bit. Mac Jones never saw the field, and really for the most part, because they were kicking out, and Mac was having a Heisman Trophy year, right?
That's
even though he didn't win it. But I mean, he was having a great year.
Yep.
So he played when the game was a blowout and stuff. He played 1 year last year. He looked like a guy who'd been in college football for about 10 years. Just it, right?
Yes.
So Grant, for me, the only weakness is little pre-snap where you're just one more step ahead of what you see. He's just such a good player. He can react. Imagine now seeing it and having another year in the same system with the same coordinator and understanding a little more where you can even make quicker decisions. I don't have a problem about his poise coming back. We saw the long drive in the game where he come back and won. I don't have a problem with him overcoming the Georgia's ass whooping defensively in the game. I actually think it's going to help in the long run. I got no issues, man. If he's healthy, the only weakness I see, people will say, well, he doesn't have the 6'3" frame or 6'. I don't care. Mm-hmm. I could care less. I guess the only weakness is he going to win the Heisman again, or is a guy on his defense going to win the Heisman? Because he's a pretty. So I don't see a glaring weakness. It's going to prevent them. He's not going to be the reason they don't win a national title unless he's hurt. That may be the case, but there's nothing I saw about him. Said, he can't make he's a full field guy. I don't have a problem with him. He's a good player.
All right, one baseball question before we wrap this up. Right now, the Yankees are only 6 up in the loss column on Tampa. They're in Anaheim tonight. Tampa is in Miami, wrapping up their 2-game set with the Marlins. Both days off tomorrow. I'll tell you something, Sean. With how bad the Yankees are, if they come to Tampa this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and get swept, I'll predict they don't even win the division. I'll predict if, and I'm telling you, it wouldn't shock me if they come to Tampa and don't win a game. This Yankees team is nowhere near the same team that they were 7-8 weeks ago. They're decimated by injuries. We get that. We've been talking all along, Yankees, Houston, Yankees, and I've always said, doesn't matter. They won't beat Houston. I'm not so sure as we turn the calendar to September 1st tomorrow, Sean. I really mean this. I'm not so sure they're going to win the division.
And I'm telling you, in this town's always more concerned with Tampa than they are the Yankees. Not that they don't respect the Yankees, but they're the same feeling the Yankees have for the Astros have for Tampa. They think they can beat them, but there's just always something. Arozarena is going to get a double up the gap when he's not supposed to. When Franco's healthy, and they just pitch. They hang around. They don't beat themselves very often, and that's who the Astros are. Yet the Astros have pitched better this year and got all these bombers that they can hit, but still. Yep. So, you're right. If they get swept, I'm with you. I still think with 30 games to go or so, a little over 30 games, and you got that lead, how can you blow? It'll be epic if that happens, Grant.
I'm talking bigger collapse than your Red Sox in 78.
There's no question about it. And if they do, I don't know how you regain momentum going into the postseason. You'll go in and make right. And what a bummer, because you sit there and watch Judge. You're rooting for him to, and then you look at this. It's the team's too talented to be doing this. But if Tampa's able to pull that off, look out.
All right. So the Yankees, in retrospect, made a big mistake by not signing Judge at the beginning of the season.
Oh.
Throw me a number out. What do you think we're talking about for Judge, regardless of whether it's the Yankees or someone else?
Minimum 350 overall. Minimum. Now, see, I don't like paying 10, 12 years, Grant.
I hate it.
A 21-year-old, I get why they consider, but I don't even like that. But I do like 6, 7 years, 7 years at about 38 to 40 a year. I'll take him right there in Fenway, dude. If you don't want his ass, we'll have him right here in Houston. If they don't want his ass, I'll take him because he is a great player. But I'm looking at somewhere in that 40 million range. But he's going to 350 or above, Grant, and he's earned every friggin' penny of it. He bet on himself. Yeah. And it is just, okay, let me ask you this. Do you want Maris to keep the record because you got old school Yankee and or do you want Aaron Judge to blow by it?
Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. I just
both good dudes.
Yeah, that's my point. I like the fact that Judge is such a consummate professional and would be somebody that if my son or if I had a granddaughter or grandson, if they wanted that jersey for the holidays, I would love to go out and have them idolize. And you know what I mean? Have that
Yeah,
person as a role
absolutely.
model. My son grew up idolizing Derek Jeter, and I was so happy. I was like, oh, wow, you couldn't have picked a better guy.
Yeah, no
And so
kidding.
that means a lot. I'm old fashioned that way. I like the way Judge handles himself. He's always available for interviews at the end of games, both with local radio, visiting radio. I mean, the guy's accessible. He doesn't have an ego. There's nothing about him I really don't like.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing, Grant. He treats other fan bases respectfully. He just does. And I'm a huge fan. As a Red Sox, and I am. I'm a huge fan of his, and I can tell you this. Another thing is he'll be reverent if he does break the record.
Yeah.
He will never. It won't be a shade throwing on Roger Maris. It'll be.
That's right.
When he says it's an honor, he'll truly, if it happens, he will truly respect the Roger Maris and the Yankee legacy and what goes on.
Yep.
He's been a pleasure to watch. It's got to be between 350 and 400 million, Grant. It has to be. Has to be.
Maybe Dusty will have him in Houston.
And we'll stand and guess what? If Dusty needs somebody to stand there and go walk to New York to get him, I'm gonna carry Dusty on my shoulders to do it if that's what it takes. I'm in.
That's not good for your Red Sox, though. Even if he leaves,
and you know what? As of right now, I really don't give a fuck. Today, I don't care. But if he doesn't want the Astros, he can have my Red Sox. Yeah. I'll take him out there. We can use him too.
Can you imagine how many fucking balls he would hit over that wall? Seriously.
Yes. I mean, yes, I actually can.
They would have to put a covering on the street behind the left field wall.
Yeah,
they would have to.
Yeah, the moral of that story is don't park on Lansdowne Street when you're playing when judges play a home game. But if he's in Boston, right?
Or in practice. Oh my God.
you ain't lying, brother.
All right, man. Great show. Enjoy the weekend. I can't wait. I know you can't wait. We finally got some big time football this weekend, so enjoy it, buddy.
Be safe. I look forward to talking to you, brother. Thank you.
All right. For Sean Salisbury, I'm Grant Napier. So long, everybody.